Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Tea Talks, a great place to detox from the world over a cup of tea. Today we've got another advice video. I am doing it on two really close friends of mine. We're going to call them Anna and Alexi. I have permission from them to talk about this, and they had a little problem going on, and I was talking with them over the phone like last week, and then I thought I should put it into a video for everybody because it's got some good information in it, and we're doing a very simplified version of what we went over with them, but it's still good information. I'm really gonna only highlight two pieces of advice that I gave them because there's a whole lot going on that we could talk about, whether you want to talk about self-disclosure or kind of honesty, stuff like that. But we're going to focus on Goffman's theory of front stage and backstage, and Brene Brown talking about kind of relationship health and kindness. So the problem that was going on is Anna is in Australia. She's working with families displaced by forest fires. She's working for this awesome nonprofit over there. And Alexi is working in Argentina for a nonprofit down there, working with kind of orphanages, foster care system, education. So he's got some fun things going on too. They both really love each other. They've put their relationship first in a lot of things, which can be really, really awesome, really good. And then they got an opportunity for nonprofit work in different countries. They both love traveling, but they got this job, both of them, on opposite sides of the world. So they're 13 hours apart, which can make a relationship pretty hard, but they're only doing it for 6 months, so that's not as bad. But long distance can be tough. And so just remembering, you're important to the other person, you both value each other, that's really important. So they're at this long distance relationship. They call each other every day, so that way they can stay in touch with each other, have some intentional time with each other, and once a week they have a date night. However, being opposite sides of the globe, one is going to call in the morning, one's going to call at night, the other one's going to call in the morning, and they'll switch off back and forth. And whoever is kind of at the end of their day is generally a bit more tired than the person is at the beginning of their day, because their jobs are really emotionally demanding, which can make being intentional and putting a lot of time into an emotional relationship when you're tired and at the end of a day, and when you haven't seen the other person for 2 months, that can be really tough. And so they're finding ways to keep it intentional. They have a date night once a week. It's great. However, problem arose one week when Anna was feeling really tired after her days and wasn't able to put a whole lot of time into their both calls just every day, and then the date night she wasn't able to put in the same amount of time that they had been doing, and that kind of made Alexi pretty sad, because then the next week it was his turn to have the date night after work, and he was still able to be there and intentional, but she was still having a rough time, even though it was the morning, and all that had been pretty that 2 week time she'd been pretty tired, and it was just getting to the beginning of the forest fire season, so right at the height of her helping families displaced by forest fires, and it's only getting worse for her. It can be really emotional for her with all these stories she's hearing and work she's doing with families. And Alexi's still able to put in that energy. He feels like he wants to respect her and say, yes, let's talk about that then. But she can be a little like, I'm so exhausted from this. I want to talk about it much. I just want to rest and recover from it. And so some of that's okay, but then there's been some calls they've had where they've been able to talk about it and share a whole lot. And so that can be pretty tough. But here's what's important. They both love each other. And so the advice I gave to them was focus on that. You're only apart for 6 months, and they're 2 months in, now 2 months and 2 weeks in. You're close to being halfway. So think of that as a good thing of once it ends, you're going to have so much you can share with the other person. It's going to be amazing. And then also with Goffman's theory of front stage and backstage behavior, just from a more like theoretical standpoint, when you're on FaceTime with someone, it is so much harder, especially when you're like married to them and they know your backstage behaviors. I've talked about Goffman before. He's great. Every time I bring him up, I say, go actually research him, because you need to know this for yourself, not just from me talking about it to you. Go research this stuff. Go understand this stuff for yourself. Academia may be hard to get into and hard to stay into, but it's very valuable. So Goffman's idea that, you kind of put on a mask when you're in public and you might be more of yourself when you're at home. That's front stage mask, backstage behaviors when you're relaxed and comfortable. When you're on FaceTime, you're gonna have so many more front stage behaviors. And when you're in a relationship, you really want to relax with the other person, and so you want to show more of your backstage behaviors. You don't want to have to keep the mask up, because keeping a mask on is very, very tiring and draining when you have to do it constantly. And then doing that while you're also emotionally drained from work, that can be really tough. And so on a FaceTime call, you can't just engage in that backstage behavior freely. So just keep that in mind. After that 6 months, you're almost there. Once that ends, you're going to have so much time to just relax with the other person. It'll be great. Then there's also Brene Brown, who talks about relationship advice. And something she did with her husband is every day after work, when they would come home, they would say, what percent of 100 can you give, both energy wise and just how you're feeling, and in kindness, what percent can you give? And if together you don't reach 100%, that's a tough day. So if they come home and Anna's like, oh, I can only give 20%, I had a tough day today, and Alexi says, oh, okay, I can make up the 80%, that's fine. They can still have a great day, really be kind and intentional to each other, and Alexi can make up that 80% of energy that Anna's lacking. And if they're over like, oh, I can do 80, oh, I can do 82, great. You can both really engage in that and have an awesome intentional time. But if there's a day where they're both really drained, and if Alexi has a tough day and says, oh, I can only do 30%, I'm tired today, especially after a day of work with kids who've been orphaned or in the foster care system, or problems with just kids at home who need education too. And then Anna's got emotional drain from working with families for the past 2 weeks affected by forest fires. I mean, that's 2 people, and you both say, hey, I can only do 20% today. Now both of you together, you're only at 40. And so what you need to do is come up with a plan of saying, okay, it's going to be hard, but let's both work out some sort of system to be able to reach 100%, to be able to be intentional, be kind, and be there for each other. And this is great advice from Brene Brown of how do you value a relationship. And that's a great way to be there, be intentional, which I talk about all the time on Tea Talks. Intentionality is so important, along with just kindness, being there for the other person. So, I mean, yeah, just after 3 more months, you've got this. It might be stressful, but you have those designated times where you call, and you have those date nights. So just take into account what can you give, what can you make up, and really, can you give more than that? Because yes, you might be exhausted, but you can sometimes push yourself further. That's not always healthy. So just do what you can, because sometimes you're like, I've had a bad day. Ask your partner to take up the other half that you can't, or more than half if you can't, because marriage isn't a 50-50. It'll never be a 50-50. So just take into account, okay, what can you do to really love the other person that day? That's the best advice I could give. Thanks for listening.